Welcome to the deep dive. Today our mission is to unpack this truly, just a fascinating artifact.
Oh, absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it's a digital ecosystem, basically a series of interconnected writings, and it's all dated April 22, 2026.
Right, from the near future, essentially.
Exactly. And this material, it comes to us from a blog created by Paramendra Kumar Bhagat.
Right.
Specifically, we're looking at a post titled Netizen Equity Engineering.
Which is quite the title.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we're going to be looking at a fictional mega corporation in this text called Lumina AI.
Right, the
Yeah.
company that supposedly solves the whole crisis of modern journalism.
Yep, that's the one. And alongside that fictional story, there's a very real, hyper-specific mathematical proposal for how actual tech startups should distribute their wealth.
Right, the equity part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to really understand what this source is, we have to recognize that it defies easy categorization.
I mean, it completely operates as a hybrid.
Yeah.
On one hand, you've got this near-future science fiction constructing this really utopian vision.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, it functions as a super radical manifesto for tech startup architecture.
And the peripheral sources are wild, too. If you look at the sidebars of this blog and the linked articles, they paint this picture of a really chaotic 2026 landscape.
Oh, yeah, it's tense. You've got global AI alarms going off, artificial intelligence models going rogue.
Literally rogue AI.
Exactly. Massive space tech mergers.
Yeah.
The Pentagon asking for tens of billions for drone fleets.
Right. Just a very heavy, anxious backdrop.
And against all of that tension, Bhagat proposes this incredibly optimistic age of abundance.
Right, which he anchors in this concept he calls calcism.
Which is just such an interesting juxtaposition to the doom and gloom.
It really is. And I mean, usually when we think about a tech startup solving a problem, for you listening, there's this expectation of a single shiny app, right?
A classic silver bullet.
Right. It's like a hammer. You have a very specific nail, let's say, booking a ride across town or, I don't know, ordering a pizza, and the startup hands you an app.
Just one clean interface.
Exactly. You point at your screen, tab a button, and you say, boom, problem solved. It's localized. It's highly specific.
Because we like our solutions neatly packaged, in a tiny little interface that we can understand in like 2 seconds.
Oh, for sure.
But when you step into the world of systemic foundational collapse, that single hammer is completely useless.
Right. You can't just build an app for that.
Exactly. The global information ecosystem splintering is basically the absolute definition of a cascading systemic failure.
Right.
When the very foundations of how we share reality itself start to buckle, you don't need a new app. You need an entirely new architecture.
And that is exactly the premise of the novel within the blog. It's titled Lumina AI, The Trillion-Dollar Sun.
Which is a great title.
It is. And the protagonist, who is actually named Param, much like the author, identifies what he calls a central journalism paradox.
Right, the core issue with news today.
Exactly. He notes that news is the most consumed product online, bar none. The demand is practically infinite.
Everyone wants to know what's happening.
Always. Yet journalism as an institution, the actual business of manufacturing and verifying the news is completely collapsing.
Because it's a textbook market failure. I mean, you have infinite demand, but the supply chain is literally going bankrupt.
Right.
The monetization model is just fundamentally severed from the consumption model.
Which didn't used to be the case, right?
No, not at all. Historically, newspapers bundled high-value classified ads with the news.
Right, the classifieds paid for the journalism.
Exactly. But when the internet unbundled that, all the revenue evaporated.
Leaving us with what we have now.
Right, just clickbait and programmatic advertising.
Yeah.
And that incentivizes outrage over accuracy.
Which is why everything feels so angry all the time.
Precisely.
So Param's fictional solution is to build a new entity, but he doesn't just start from scratch in a garage somewhere.
Oh, he goes big.
Huge. He convinces 4 major, highly specific figures or entities to merge and form Lumina AI.
And this lineup is just fascinating.
It really is. Let's look at it, because the choices are super deliberate. First, he brings in Robert Skogel.
Right, to handle the citizen reporting distribution.
Exactly. Then he brings in Palpi Sharma.
To provide the editorial authority, that gravitas.
Right. Third, he grabs Lex Fridman.
Which establishes that deep intellectual trust.
Yep. And finally, a company called Cubics, designed to deliver a world-class user interface.
I mean, you're looking at a surgical assembly of parts there. It's designed to address the specific failure points of modern media.
It's like assembling the Avengers of the information age.
That's actually a perfect way to describe it.
Right. But here is where I kind of have to push back on the text a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because on paper, sure, combining raw citizen reporting, editorial gravitas, long-form podcasting, and frictionless design sounds incredible.
It sounds like a dream team.
Right. But let's look at actual history. Look at the AOL-Time Warner merger.
Oh, boy.
Right. They tried to merge the infrastructure of the internet with legacy media, and it was just a disaster. The corporate culture clash was legendary.
It was a total train wreck.
So merging four massive, distinct egos in different mediums sounds like a recipe for absolute gridlock. I mean, how does this fictional company avoid tearing itself apart in endless board meetings?
Well, the AOL-Time Warner comparison is actually a great anchor for this debate.
How so?
Because that merger failed due to it being a horizontal integration. They tried to force vastly different corporate cultures to share the exact same operational space without a unifying technological bridge.
Right, they just smashed them together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Param's merger is structured entirely differently. It is a vertical pipeline.
Okay, walk me through that.
So journalism isn't failing because there's a lack of events happening in the world, right?
Right, things are always happening.
It's failing due to three massive friction points: a catastrophic lack of trust, a notoriously poor user experience filled with pop-up ads, and broken distribution algorithms.
Oh, the user experience is the worst. A local news website today is practically unreadable on a mobile phone.
It's awful.
You're fighting through autoplay videos just to see if it's going to rain.
Right, so Scoble's network solves the raw data gathering, what's happening right now on the ground.
Okay.
But raw data is just noise without a filter. So Sharma brings the editorial filter, what does this mean, and is it verified?
The adult in the room, basically.
Exactly. Then Friedman brings the depth. In a world of 10-second clips, taking 3 hours to explore nuance builds profound trust.
Right, that long-form trust.
And finally, Kubik's design packages all of it, so the user never experiences friction. No pop-ups, no clutter.
Okay, so it's a pipeline.
Yes. And to address your pushback about gridlock, the synergy works because they literally aren't stepping on each other's toes.
Oh, I see.
You aren't asking the deep dive intellectual to design the app interface, and you aren't asking the citizen journalist on the ground to write the nuanced editorial. Raw data flows up, gets verified, gets analyzed deeply, and then gets delivered seamlessly.
Okay, that makes sense. It's essentially the industrialization of truth-seeking.
Exactly.
But, you know, a brilliant foundation is nothing without execution.
100%.
You can have the best pipeline in theory, but if you don't actually ship the product, you're just a philosophy club having nice chats.
Right. You have to actually build it.
So the text details how Param forces this massive new entity to build things without getting bogged down through something called the 6-week law.
And this is where it gets really intense.
It really does. Every major feature must ship in 6 weeks or die.
Which is wild.
Right. There are no 2-year development cycles. And apparently in the book, it works. The text details Lumina News launching with truth modes and a zero surveillance architecture.
Right.
And they beat traditional media during this vague global crisis that happens in the narrative, scaling to tens of millions of users rapidly.
I mean, that timeline is aggressive, to put it mildly.
Right. And for me, it raises a massive contradiction.
The speed versus security thing.
Exactly. They are shipping global scale features in just 6 weeks while simultaneously building an airtight zero surveillance architecture.
Right.
In software development, if you move that fast, you're usually subscribing to the move fast and break things mantra.
With Facebook's old motto.
Right. And usually when you rush, you sacrifice security, you sacrifice privacy, and you accidentally leave backdoors wide open. So how does the text reconcile this incredible speed with airtight security?
It's a great point. In the real world, speed and security are almost always inversely correlated.
Right.
But let's look at the actual mechanism of the 6-week law. It isn't just a mandate to make the engineers type faster on their keyboards.
Okay, what is it then?
It acts as a ruthless pruning mechanism against feature bloat. Think about it. If you only have 6 weeks, you physically cannot build a complicated, sprawling, data harvesting surveillance apparatus.
Oh, wow. So by removing the surveillance apparatus entirely, they aren't just protecting privacy.
Yeah, exactly.
They are actually cutting their engineering payload massively.
Substantially. It is exponentially faster to build a system that simply routes information from point A to point B.
Right.
It's so much harder to build a system that tracks, stores, sorts, and monetizes the behavior of the person receiving that information.
Because that requires massive databases and tracking algorithms.
Exactly. You are just building the pipes, not the traps.
Building the pipes, not the traps. I love that phrasing.
It makes a huge difference.
So let's talk about these truth modes they launched with. The text mentions them as this key feature, but, I mean, who decides what is true?
The ultimate question, right?
Right. If Lumina is using AI filters to present the news, we run straight into the issue of algorithmic bias. Isn't AI really capable of objective truth, or is it just enforcing the worldview of whoever programmed it?
Well, the text implies that these truth modes are not a monolithic, singular declaration of objective reality from some centralized AI god.
Okay, good.
Instead, they function as user-selected, verified lenses.
How does that work in practice?
So imagine you're reading a story about a really complex geopolitical event.
Okay.
A user could toggle a statistical mode. This would strip away all the adjectives, all the spin, and just show you the verified numbers.
Oh, that would be amazing. Just the math.
Right. Or they could toggle a historical context mode to see the precedent of the conflict stretching back decades.
Okay, I see.
Or even a direct primary sources mode to only read unedited transcripts of what was actually said by the politicians, with no commentary.
So it hands the editorial control back to the user.
Exactly. It's mediated by an AI that categorizes the information rather than dictates what you should think about it.
Which explains why they win during that global crisis in the book. When a crisis hits, traditional media and old tech giants likely lose the public's trust.
Because they're seen as slow, or worse, they're caught exploiting the crisis for engagement.
Right, pushing the panic buttons for clicks. So Lumina, by making privacy the default and offering these really transparent modes, becomes the only safe harbor.
Because trust becomes the ultimate currency during a crisis. A zero surveillance guarantee fundamentally changes the psychological relationship between the user and the screen.
How so?
Well, you transition from being a harvested product to being a protected citizen of that digital ecosystem.
Oh, that's a huge shift.
It really is.
So Lumina basically conquers the news landscape. They establish this pipeline of trust. They build a massive user base. But, text is inherently limiting.
Right, reading only gets you so far.
Exactly. If a company wants planetary scale, the next logical step is to democratize the most engaging medium on Earth.
Which is video.
Video. This brings us to their aggregation phase. Lumina goes on an acquisition spree. They absorb startups across 4 specific verticals.
And those verticals are key.
Right. Verification, translation, micropayments, and identity. And by bolting these 4 technologies onto their existing user base, it rockets them past 100 million monthly active users.
That's massive growth.
The text literally calls them a Google-scale threat.
Which is not a phrase to throw around lightly. And the deliberate choice of those 4 verticals is the key to understanding their next phase.
Right.
Because they aren't buying content companies. They are buying infrastructure.
Yeah, I picture it kind of like building the municipal plumbing for a new digital city.
That's a great analogy.
Right, like identity acts as the passport for the citizens. Verification is the structural integrity, like the walls keeping out the bots and the deep fakes.
Exactly.
Translation is the road system connecting all the different neighborhoods. And micropayments are the local economy.
Right. And if we synthesize those acquisitions, we can understand the mechanism behind their next major product launch in the book, which is Lumina Cut.
Right, the video editor.
Exactly. The text describes it as an AI video editor designed to make everyone a filmmaker.
Everyone.
Everyone. So connect the dots between those 4 utilities and video editing. Why does a video editor need a native translation engine built in? Because Lumina Cut can take a video shot by a creator in rural Nepal in their native language and instantly dub it into English, Spanish, and Mandarin with perfect lip syncing.
That is mind-blowing. The language barrier to virality is completely eliminated.
Instantly.
A creator is global the exact second they hit publish.
And by owning identity and verification at the base layer, the provenance of the video is mathematically proven.
There's no deepfakes.
Right. It eliminates the friction of fake accounts stealing content or AI impersonating real people.
But I feel like the micropayments vertical is perhaps the most vital part of all this.
Oh, without a doubt. Think about the current friction for a video creator trying to monetize on, say, YouTube or TikTok.
It's a nightmare.
It is. They have to rely on ad revenue shares governed by totally opaque algorithms. Or they have to go out and secure third-party brand sponsorships.
Which takes a whole team sometime.
Exactly. But by integrating micropayments directly into the platform's base architecture, viewers can stream fractions of a cent for every second watched directly into the creator's wallet.
Just a continuous flow of microcents.
Right. Zero friction, zero middlemen.
The psychological shift there is massive. Lumina basically takes an audience that originally came to passively consume trustworthy news and hands them the tools to become an active, monetized economy of creators.
And when you lower the barrier to creation that drastically, using AI to automate the technical friction of editing, translating, and monetizing,
Yeah.
you unlock a tidal wave of human expression that was previously bottlenecked by technical skills.
Because suddenly anyone with an idea can execute it perfectly.
Exactly.
But, once you've used AI to remove the friction of making a video, you haven't just built a media company.
No, you've built something much bigger.
You've accidentally built the ultimate teaching engine.
Right.
I mean, if an AI can guide you through complex video editing based on your real-time actions, why couldn't it teach you calculus?
Or physics or history.
Right. And that realization pushes Lumina out of the media space and straight into the human mind. The text outlines Lumina's entry into education through a product called Lumina Scholar.
Which is a huge pivot.
It is. It's described as an AI tutor that adapts to each learner's cognitive rhythm.
And cognitive rhythm is such a loaded phrase.
Oh, totally.
It implies moving entirely away from chronological education towards state-dependent education.
Yeah, when I read that phrase, it gave me the image of a world-class DJ reading a room.
Oh, I like that.
Right, like the DJ adjusts the tempo based on the crowd's energy. In this case, the room is just your brain.
The audience of one.
Exactly. The AI reads your biofeedback, or your interaction speed. So if you are razor sharp at 10 a.m., it hits you with advanced mathematics.
Pushing you when you're at your peak.
Right, but if you are sluggish at 2 p.m. after lunch, it recognizes that rhythm. It seamlessly switches to a narrative, story-driven history lesson that requires a little less brute force processing power.
Consider how radically that departs from the last century and a half of the Prussian industrial education model.
It's the complete opposite.
Right. We currently rely on a factory system. One teacher stands at the front of a room of 30 students, delivering a standardized lecture simply because it happens to be 11 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Regardless of whether half the class is asleep.
Exactly. And the teacher is paid a fixed, salaried wage, regardless of the individual student's outcome.
But the text highlights a massive economic shift here with Lumina Scholar. With the AI handling all that rote instruction and adapting to the cognitive rhythm, human teachers transition into mentors.
Right.
And these mentors earn royalties. The text notes Lumina merges with dozens of ed tech startups to facilitate this whole new system.
The royalty model completely destroys the industrial paradigm.
How so?
It creates an entirely new creator economy for pedagogy.
Oh, like creators on YouTube, but for teaching.
Exactly. Imagine a brilliant mentor in a small town. They create an interactive, empathetic framework for teaching dyslexic students how to read. If that framework is plugged into the Lumina Scholar ecosystem and then utilized by millions of students globally, that local teacher is suddenly earning royalties on a massive scale.
Wow.
It incentivizes the creation of the best possible educational experiences, rather than just incentivizing physical attendance in a brick-and-mortar classroom.
So for you listening, think back to the absolute hardest subject you ever had to learn in school.
Chemistry for me.
Chemistry, right. How much faster could you have mastered it if the curriculum actively adapted to your personal brainwaves?
Your frustrations, your peaks of focus.
Exactly. It changes the definition of learning from a chore to a state of flow.
It literally removes the friction from human potential.
Which brings us to a critical juncture for this fictional company. Lumina is now facilitating global news, powering video creation, and providing personalized planetary education.
They are essentially an operating system for human productivity at this point.
Right. But how do you monetize this at a global scale without becoming an extractive surveillance capitalist monopoly like the ones they replaced?
That is the trillion-dollar question.
Literally.
Yeah.
The text states that Lumina launches a marketplace that is unlike Amazon because it sells capabilities, not objects.
They aren't shipping cardboard boxes, they are shipping potential.
Yes. The inventory listed in the text includes digital goods, AI companions, specialized courses, creator IP, and modes that upgrade human potential.
Modes.
Right. And this specific marketplace model is what drives Lumina's valuation to an astronomical $300 billion in the story.
That's a staggering number.
But when I read about buying modes, my mind went straight to the Matrix.
Oh, the Kung Fu scene.
Exactly. Neo is plugged into a chair, his eyes flutter open, and he just says, "I know Kung Fu."
Right.
Lumina is basically selling software patches for the human brain. You buy a mode that integrates with your Lumina Scholar AI to rapidly install coding capability directly into your workflow.
It's wild to think about.
But I have to raise a philosophical question here.
Go for it.
If I go to this Lumina marketplace and I buy a data analysis capability, do I actually own that skill?
Oh, that's a great point.
Right. Or am I just renting it from Lumina? If the AI is doing the heavy lifting in the background, what happens to human agency if our core professional skills are subscription-based?
Right, like do you lose the skill if you cancel your subscription?
Exactly. If my credit card declines, do I forget how to do my job?
You are hitting on the fundamental tension of Bhagat's Age of Abundance.
Am I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the question is, are we augmenting human capability or are we outsourcing it to the point of absolute dependency?
Right. Is it a tool or a crutch?
Exactly. Is it an exoskeleton that makes us stronger or a wheelchair that we eventually can't walk without?
Oof, that's dark.
The text doesn't really provide a neat answer to that.
Okay.
But it forces us to confront the economics of why this model generates a $300 billion valuation so quickly.
Right. Let's talk about the economics of it.
If we contrast this with Amazon, we see the difference between physical and digital logistics.
Okay.
To sell a physical blender, Amazon has to manufacture it, store it in a massive warehouse, put it on a truck, pay for gas, and deliver it to your porch.
Lots of friction.
Endless friction. The profit margins are incredibly thin because moving atoms is fundamentally expensive.
Right.
But Lumina operates on a zero marginal cost model.
Because it's all digital.
Exactly. Once an AI learning mode is developed by their engineers, the cost to distribute it to one person or 1 billion people is functionally zero.
Wow. So the profit margins on capabilities are near 100%.
Near 100%. A $300 billion valuation isn't just feasible under a zero marginal cost model. It might actually be conservative.
Conservative.
Think about it. If they are capturing a percentage of the entire globe's cognitive productivity, $300 billion is just the starting line. They completely decouple revenue from physical constraints.
But, pure software is ultimately limited to screens.
True.
To achieve what Param calls a planetary interface, Lumina has to break out of the digital realm and enter the physical world.
Right, they have to touch atoms eventually.
Exactly. And the final stage of Lumina's evolution in the novel is robotics.
Which is where things get really sci-fi.
Yeah. The text mentions teaching robots, journalism drones, entertainment performers, and home companions. They take those digital capabilities from the marketplace and download them into physical hardware.
And this convergence leads right to the climax of the narrative.
Right. A massive cyber attack is launched in the story. It's a coordinated attempt to take down this entire planetary network they've built.
But the attack fails.
It does. And it fails specifically because of Lumina's resilient zero-surveillance architecture.
We had to unpack that.
But first, I am just fascinated by the mention of journalism drones. We discussed Robert Scoble mobilizing citizens to record events earlier.
Right, phones on the ground.
Right. But it is an entirely different level to have a decentralized, globally deployed fleet of drones fact-checking reality.
Oh, completely.
Imagine a natural disaster happens, and instead of waiting for a news crew with a helicopter to show up hours later, a swarm of verified Lumina drones is just there, providing a multi-angle, untampered, cryptographic live feed instantly.
It physically removes the fog of war.
Exactly. But let's connect that failed cyber attack back to the zero surveillance architecture you mentioned.
Right. Why does the attack actually fail?
Why does it?
Well, in the traditional Web 2.0 model, companies hoard billions of data points in centralized servers.
Passwords, biometrics, location data, everything.
Right. And that makes them a massive target. A hacker knows exactly where to strike to steal maximum value. It's a honeypot.
Makes sense.
But because Lumina promised zero surveillance from day one and doesn't hoard centralized exploitable user data, there is no honeypot to steal.
Oh.
You can't hack a database if the database literally doesn't exist.
Wow. So the resilience isn't about having thicker firewalls.
Exactly. It's a structural absence of vulnerability.
Privacy becomes the ultimate cybersecurity defense. That is brilliant.
It really is. And alongside this, there's a thematic post linked in the text titled, "Forget Mars, the future is orbital AI."
Forget Mars. That feels like a direct challenge to the current tech zeitgeist.
Specifically to the ambitions of people like Elon Musk, right?
Yeah. Right, the whole let's colonize another planet vibe.
Exactly. The dominant narrative today is escapism. The Earth is messy, politics are broken, the climate is changing, so let's just build rockets and start over on a dead red planet.
Clean slate.
Right. But Bhagat's text completely rejects that.
By prioritizing an orbital AI.
Yes. A layer of intelligence enveloping our own planet. The text suggests we use our most advanced technologies to actually fix the planet we are currently standing on.
It's a commitment to terrestrial problem solving over interplanetary flight.
Exactly. Don't run away, fix the home world.
So this sweeping sci-fi vision of a trillion-dollar megacorp is incredibly intoxicating.
It's a great story.
It is. But what grounds this entire narrative? Bhagat isn't just writing fiction for fun. He proposes a real-world, highly specific mathematical formula to build companies like Lumina today.
Right, the equity engineering.
Let's look at his equity engineering. He proposes this 30-30-30-10 equity blueprint for tech startups.
And this is where it gets very technical, but it's crucial.
Super crucial. Here's the breakdown for you listening. First, 30% goes to the founder's pool.
Okay.
Now, the founder CEO gets 15% of that, but it's split in a very unique way.
Right.
The CEO keeps the voting power for the full 15% to maintain control. But the wealth generated by 10% of that goes directly to a foundation.
So they don't keep the money for that 10%.
Exactly. The CEO only retains 5% for their personal wealth.
That's a massive shift from standard Silicon Valley greed.
It is. Okay, second chunk. 30% goes to investors, but it's distributed in 10 stages at 3% each.
Slow drip funding.
Right. Third chunk, 30% goes to team members, spread over 10 years with a 5-year vesting period. And importantly, employees don't have to pay to exercise their shares.
Which solves a huge headache for early startup employees.
Huge. But crucially, the text explicitly states that the founders, the investors, and the team members all receive anti-dilution clauses.
And we really need to unpack the mechanics of this because it is a radical departure from standard venture capital practices.
Oh, completely. I had to stop and actually do the math on a notepad when I read this.
What'd you find?
Well, there are two glaring issues. First, 30 plus 30 plus 30 equals 90%.
Right.
What happens to the remaining 10%? The title of the concept is literally 30-30-30-10, but the text leaves that final 10% completely unspoken.
It's just a mystery.
Is it a public pool?
Yeah.
A planetary DAO?
The text doesn't say.
We can speculate on that in a minute. What's the second issue?
The anti-dilution clauses. Let's use an analogy for anyone listening who hasn't sat in a VC boardroom.
Please do.
Imagine a startup's total ownership is a pizza.
A pizza.
Normally, when a company needs money to grow, they essentially bake new slices of pizza to give to new investors.
Right.
Because there are now more slices in total, your original slice represents a smaller percentage of the whole pie.
Right. Your piece of the pie shrinks. That's dilution.
Exactly. Anti-dilution means your percentage of the pizza can mathematically never shrink.
Which sounds great for the person holding the slice. Right. But if everyone, the founders, the investors, the employees, all have anti-dilution clauses, how can the company ever issue new shares?
It's a paradox.
You mathematically cannot bake new slices if everyone is guaranteed their percentage will never ever drop. How does a company grow through 10 stages of investment without breaking the fundamental laws of mathematics?
Well, from a strict accounting perspective, you're totally right. Universal anti-dilution creates an impossible paradox.
Right, it doesn't work.
In traditional finance, dilution is the engine of capital formation. You issued new shares, everyone's percentage drops slightly, but the influx of capital raises the overall value of the company.
So you own a smaller slice, but of a much larger, more expensive pie.
Exactly. But if we look at the intent behind Bhagat's formula, we see a reaction to a very real, very ugly problem.
What's that?
In the real tech world, early employees and founders are routinely subjected to aggressive equity stripping.
Oh yeah, VCs can be brutal.
They dictate terms that dilute the early team so severely that by the time a company goes public, the people who actually built the technology often own fractions of a percent.
They get pushed out of their own creation.
Right. So the universal anti-dilution clause, even if it's mathematically thorny, is really a philosophical demand for fairness.
Ah, I see.
It is designed to strictly prevent exploitation.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the missing 10%?
Right, the mysterious 10. While the text leaves it blank, if we look at the philanthropic nature of the CEO's foundation,
Yeah.
We could extrapolate that the final 10% is reserved for the users themselves.
The users.
Yeah, perhaps a decentralized pool that rewards the citizens of Lumina ecosystem, turning the users into literal stakeholders of the company.
Oh, wow. That would be revolutionary.
It would completely change the dynamic of social networks.
But honestly, the element of the formula that stands out the most to me is the CEO split.
The 15 versus 5%.
Yes, 15% voting power, but only 5% wealth. In most corporations, control and greed are inextricably linked.
Right. You fight for control specifically so you can hoard more wealth.
Exactly.
But Bhagat recognizes that for a visionary to build a trillion-dollar architecture like Lumina, they need structural control.
Right, they can't be pushed around.
Exactly. They cannot be voted out by short-term activist investors who
Yeah.
just want to strip mine the company for quarterly profits.
Which happens all the time.
All the time.
Mm.
So the 15% voting power secures the mission. But by capping their personal wealth at 5% and funneling the remaining 10% to a foundation, the model ensures the CEO remains a steward rather than an oligarch.
A steward rather than an oligarch. I love that.
Because if your personal wealth is capped, your motivation fundamentally shifts.
How do you mean?
You are building the company to fulfill its structural purpose, not to buy a fourth yacht.
Right.
The foundation, fueled by 10% of a massive valuation, becomes an engine for public good. It bakes social responsibility directly into the cap table from day one.
It's hard-coded into the company's DNA. Now, to understand why Bhagat felt the urgent need to invent this utopian equity model and the whole Lumina megacorp, we have to look at the world he is writing from.
The 2026 backdrop.
Yes. The sidebars of his blog and the news links he curates give us a very visceral glimpse into April 2026.
And it is not pretty.
No, the headlines hovering around his post are intense. I'm going to read a few of them.
Go ahead.
Anthropic's new Mythos AI model sets off global alarms and misses America's cybersecurity agency.
Terrifying.
AI swarms could hijack democracy without anyone noticing.
Also terrifying.
SpaceX and Cursor strike partnership that might end in a $60 billion acquisition.
Massive consolidation of power.
Right. The Pentagon wants $54 billion for drones, and Bitcoin is near $79,000.
This contextual backdrop is literally the key to decoding the entire deep dive.
How so?
These headlines create a societal pressure cooker. When you have a military-industrial complex spending $54 billion on drones, and AI models operating totally beyond the oversight of cybersecurity agencies, you have a technological ecosystem spiraling entirely out of human control.
It feels like standing on the edge of a cliff.
Exactly. So the novel isn't just a flight of fancy, it is an antidote. Every feature of Lumina is designed to counteract the specific horror in those 2026 headlines.
Let's trace that architecture.
Okay, look at the public. They are terrified of AI acting in the shadows.
Because of the Mythos AI global alarms.
Exactly. So Bhagat invents Lumina's zero surveillance architecture, a system so transparent it cannot operate in the dark.
Oh, wow. I see.
The Pentagon is building weapons of war with their $54 billion, so Bhagat counters with journalism drones, a decentralized fleet built purely for truth-seeking and transparency.
Drones for peace instead of war.
Right. Autonomous AI swarms are threatening to hijack democracy, so Bhagat invents truth modes and an AI tutor that teaches critical thinking through cognitive rhythms, essentially immunizing the populace against manipulation.
It's almost like a mirrored reflection of all our modern anxieties.
It is. And earlier we mentioned his concept of Kalkiism.
Right, the anchor for his age of abundance.
Exactly. In Hindu eschatology, Kalki is the final avatar who brings an end to the Dark Age and ushers in a new epoch of truth.
Wow.
Bhagat is using this as a philosophical anchor for a tech-driven renaissance. The Age of Abundance is a desperate, necessary counter-narrative to systemic collapse.
You know, we started this journey looking at the paradox of journalism's broken supply chain.
You did.
We explored how merging distribution, editorial authority, intellectual depth, and frictionless design could build an actual pipeline of trust.
The Avengers of Information.
Right. We unpacked the 6-week law and how moving fast might actually eliminate the bloat of surveillance architecture.
Building pipes instead of traps.
Exactly. We examined the aggregation of utilities like translation and micropayments to turn passive consumers into a booming economy of creators.
And we saw the disruption of the industrial education model through state-dependent learning, turning teachers into high-earning mentors.
Right. Then we analyzed the zero marginal cost economics of that capability marketplace, driving a massive $300 billion valuation by selling potential rather than physical objects.
We looked at a planetary interface defended by the sheer absence of an exploitable database.
And finally, we tore down the math of the 30-30-30-10 equity formula designed to engineer stewardship over greed.
It's been quite a ride.
It really has. But as we wrap up, there is one final thought derived from Lumina's capability marketplace that I want to leave you, the listener, with.
Okay, let's hear it.
If a company actually succeeds in building a marketplace where you can buy capabilities and download them directly into your workflow, basically upgrading your potential instantly, like a software patch, what happens to the human experience of struggle?
Oh, that is a heavy question.
Think about it. We have always relied on the 10,000-hour rule.
Right. Malcolm Gladwell's concept.
Yeah. You want to master a skill, you sit, you practice, you fail, and eventually, through immense friction and time, you achieve mastery.
You earn it.
You earn it. But if those 10,000 hours can just be bypassed for a $49 monthly subscription fee, does the age of abundance accidentally rob us of the profound satisfaction of hard work?
Yeah.
If there is no friction, is there any triumph?
If you don't climb the mountain, do you still enjoy the view?
Exactly. It's something to mull over as you consider what kind of architecture you would want to build for the future. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.